the care of widows, poor, and strangers. The Jerusalem assembly walked through a city crowded with pilgrims, merchants, priests, laborers, and those left behind by the strength of others, widows, the poor, and strangers without kin. Yet in all this noise and movement, the people of the way carried a rhythm of compassion that marked them as a household shaped by Yahweh's heart. They remembered that He defends the widow, that He lifts the poor from the dust, that He loves the sojourner and gives him bread and clothing. So they opened their gates wide and let mercy flow like water from a spring. Widows sat in honored places among them. These women carried stories of covenant faithfulness in their bones, stories of prayers whispered in the night, of husbands buried with tears, of Yahweh sustaining them through famine and fear. The assembly treated them not as burdens, but as mothers of Israel. Their hands were kissed, their voices treasured, their needs met before any others. Each morning the servants brought food to their doors. Each evening households invited them to warm tables where bread was broken and blessings spoken. When widows prayed, the room fell quiet, for the assembly knew that Yahweh bends His ear toward such voices. The poor never felt shame among the believers. They were clothed with honor, fed with dignity, and embraced as brothers and sisters. No one asked how poverty came. No one weighed worthiness. The only measure was need. If a family's grain jar ran low, others filled it. If a worker lost his labor, others offered their own wages to cover his absence. If a widow's roof sagged, hands climbed ladders before she ever spoke a word. Among the believers, giving was not an act of charity. It was the natural breath of covenant life. The 7 men appointed by the apostles walked through the city like steady pillars, carrying mercy on their shoulders. These servants, chosen for their faithfulness and filled with the Ruach, oversaw the daily distribution of food and goods. Their steps were swift but gentle. Their voices soothed disputes before they could find roots. They ensured that the Greek-speaking widows received the same care as the Hebrew-speaking ones. They carried jars of oil, baskets of bread, and bundles of clothing with the same reverence that priests once carried offerings to the altar. Through their hands, the compassion of Yahweh flowed without hindrance. Even the strangers who wandered into the city found refuge among the people of the way. Some were travelers far from home. Some were laborers with no kin. Some had come seeking truth and found themselves embraced before they ever understood Yeshua's teachings. The assembly opened its doors to them without hesitation. Lamps were lit in guest rooms. Bread was set before them. Water was poured into their cups. Their presence reminded the assembly that they, too, had once been strangers in the land, and Yahweh Himself had been their shelter. The care offered by the assembly was not scattered or haphazard. It grew from the steady root of covenant obedience. Each household played its part, some with grain, some with clothing, some with shelter, some with labor, some with prayer, all with love. Elders oversaw the distribution, ensuring justice remained fair. The apostles prayed for the servants that their hands would not grow weary. The Ruach HaKodesh breathed through the entire work, stirring compassion when hearts grew heavy and guiding decisions when needs pressed on every side. When the assembly gathered in homes each night, stories of Yahweh's mercy circled the tables. A widow spoke of healing in her bones. A poor brother recounted how his children ate until they were full for the first time in days. A stranger thanked Yahweh for a place to lay his head. These stories became as common as the breaking of bread, weaving gratitude through every household. They strengthened unity, reminding the assembly that generosity was their shared inheritance. Mercy became their witness. Jerusalem watched them with astonishment. Priests saw them care for widows more faithfully than many who served at the altar. Merchants saw them share goods freely while others clung to profits. Romans saw a people who treated strangers as family. Even their enemies could not deny the beauty of their compassion. No arguments were needed. The works themselves declared the truth of the way. And the assembly did not grow weary. The more they gave, the more Yahweh supplied. The more they opened their doors, the wider their hearts grew. Their mercy cleared paths for the gospel. Their generosity softened hardened faces. Their care drew many toward the teachings of Yeshua, for they saw in the assembly a living picture of the kingdom that he proclaimed. Thus the Jerusalem assembly walked the covenant path with open hands and steady feet. They carried the weak as shepherds carry lambs. They lifted the bowed down as priests lift offerings. They welcomed the stranger as Abraham once welcomed heavenly messengers. They honored widows as Yahweh commands. Their mercy shone in a city filled with need, revealing that Yahweh himself dwelt among them.